Hello and happy whatever day you see this. We are having a Saturday here and happy to share our teachings with all of you out there in our extended happy community of the Shala. This week is a continuation on our studies of the three bodies that we're working with every time we come to our yoga practice. And last week you got my cool diagram where we talked about one of the main reasons we all do yoga is to take ourselves out of these habitual patterns of how we walk through the day and sit through the day and shallow breathe through the day, to take us into full extension of movement in our up dogs and our down dogs and our balancing poses and our twists, and all of that takes us out of that normal pattern of how we hold our physical body, but also out of that normal pattern of breathing. When you add those two together, we have this great benefit to our physical body, our energy body, our all of our different internal systems. So when we think of, I was calling it the orange zone. So if I'm sort of living in this zone here, when I do up dog, I move into this deep, open heart, stretched throat, long psoas muscles, and that's the orange zone in our diagram. And then when we add breathing to that, I call that the pink zone. Then we're getting all this benefit in our vayus and through our electrical system, and more energy in our thinking mind and our passions and our creativity, which is what I want to talk about today. So if you were to see this lovely picture I have up on the wall that Tamara will take a picture of, I have 4 people in lotus, and they kind of look like snowmen. I forgot their torsos. And the first person in lotus has all these arrows coming in that show us that the bandhas are engaged, and that as we're breathing and moving prana and moving energy, that it's held within our body. And then the second snowman is the vayus. And for all of us understanding this system of breathing, the vayus are really about moving currents through the body. I talked about that last week. So if I'm getting hot water into my system here, it'll just stay hot towards my head, but I need to push my hand around the bathtub of my body and create currents to move that hot water all the way through my body. And so the vayus are like that for us. When I breathe and I twist my body in certain ways with that breath in that orange zone, in that pink zone, now I'm moving this current through my body of prana and getting it in places that during my normal day living it doesn't get to. And then the third snowman is a snowman that has yellow moving through him to the edges of his body, and that represents, anyone remember? You can read it. The nadis. So that's like our electrical circuitry that moves throughout the 72,000 channels of electric wiring that goes through our body. And as we breathe, ujjayi, and we hold it in with the bandhas, then it goes all the way through like the meridians or those energy channels as we're doing our yoga poses and getting it to the very edges where you see our skin, like the edges of your shoulders, the edges of your head, the edges of your feet, your knees, all of that. And then the third snowman is a chakra snowman, which is my favorite because it looks like he has chakra buttons on his snowman self. And that represents what? So we've talked about currents, electricity. What's the other snowman? What are chakras? So what do the little buttons represent?
The wheels of energy.
The wheels of energy. Very good. So the wheels of energy also are set into motion with our breathing and our ability to hold the bandhas and move those through. And if the vayus serve my physical body's health, then the chakras serve for 5 points? Yeah, your spiritual or your emotional self. So every time we come here and we breathe and we breathe and we open the chest, and we get these wheels we call the chakras, these energy centers that reside within our body, we start to, as I said last week, like service things that get shut down a lot in our normal patterns of living, that get moved around like the furniture moved around and opened here. So on my first diagram, there's these little pink swirls that I call the chakra work that we're doing, the moving your furniture work. And that just represents something so simple, which means you're going to practice prep today for an hour, 15, 20 minutes, And you might have come here low energy. You might have even come here like kind of grumpy or just feeling like a little twisted about something. No one really looks that way, but let's pretend that Jenny, even though she's smiling, is a little twisted about something. But after doing sun salute, standing poses, seated poses, back bends, closing sequence, headstand, at the very end, you leave here feeling how? Feel light? Yeah, it's almost like it's like a perspective changer. Like all of a sudden you're like, what am I so upset about? Or that's not such a big deal, or it's gonna be okay, or maybe you don't even have words for it, but you just leave here feeling just a little happier, or a little bit more compassionate, or a little bit more generous. All of those things is your yoga working. That means your yoga's working, and it's not only touching your physical body, but it's touching your emotional self and your spiritual self. And that's why we can all say that this practice becomes this really beautiful part of keeping my whole self healthy, my deepest parts of myself healthy. So I asked Mary to come and be my example today. Mary's been our angel here at the Shala since we've opened 14 years ago. We all love her so much, and she's probably, I think we'd all agree, our brightest lightning bug. She is a master lightning bug because she just emanates joy and just gives joy unconditionally. And she's been practicing Ashtanga for over 20 years, so I asked her to just tell a little testimonial on how you would say that your practice helps you in your emotional or spiritual life.
I think our practice, when I found it through you, thank goodness, it woke me up to how vital, all of these elements of our daily life can impact how we address today. So with energy work and physicality and emotional happiness, I've found that this Ashtanga practice has clearly, in my journey in the last 20 years, is how I live my life. It's not a fad, it's not something that is a year. This has been a 20-year journey for me, and I am just so thrilled to have ultimate health, vitality, really I love to have a great sense of humor because life is joyful, and surrounding myself with like-minded individuals who are concerned about their health and do make an effort, because it is effort to come to your mat every day. But I guarantee you, the minute you finish your practice and your Shavasana and you share your gratitude, your day is brighter, your day is better because of the practice. So I thank you, Diana, for many, many years, and I look forward to many more.
Yay. Yay, Mary. She's my best advertisement because the people are like, lady, why are you so happy? What are you on? I want some of that. She'll say, I'm on Ashtanga. Then she flips a card and says, join us. She's the best advertisement. So another testimonial was a student shared this with me last week. He said, if you'd have met me 3 or 5 years ago, you wouldn't recognize me. He said that he was stressed and just a different guy. And he said after doing yoga for 1.5 years, he said, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm more patient, I'm more loving. And I thought, that's what we're talking about today. That's what it's really all about. So just kind of coming back to this, 2 hours on your yoga mat will wind up really touching the other 22 hours of your life in ways that Mary said are more about like how we're showing up for the moments, how we're living our mind, and what we make of our life through our mind. So last week I asked you to watch a TED Talk by Anita Moorjani, which, did everyone love it? It's really such an amazing. So in this TED Talk I asked all of you to watch, she talks about where we put our attention being so vital for really becoming what our lives are about, is where we put our attention. And she described it like a flashlight, that where you put your flashlight, where you put your light, is where your attention, where your energy goes. And what we're talking about this week is really about all of you coming here and putting your attention on your breath, on looking within for an hour and a half, on breathing energy through your bodies. And that flashlight hour and a half here of you putting your attention really winds up affecting where we choose to put our attention when we're not on our yoga mats. One of her examples, she said, obviously she had cancer, and her story is very compelling, where she was in a coma, and the doctors told her family she had an hour to live and to say their goodbyes, and she says she went to the other side and saw her father, who had already passed away, and coming back to this side, she had these really powerful stories to share with everyone. And she said where she puts her awareness now is so different. Instead of cancer awareness, she said she puts her attention on wellness awareness, and rather than being against wars, she's for peace. And just such a beautiful example for all of us on what we get from our yoga mats, as far as just helping us bring our attention, our focus on where we shine our flashlight. So I wanted to end with the 5 things that she shared after coming back that she felt like were really game changers for her, and how she wanted to live the moments of her life. And they're all things that we've been talking about this last semester. And the first one was what? Love. Love yourself. Fall in love with yourself, and that you'll be able to love others. That was number 1. What's number 2? Live fearlessly. She's like, she used to be so worried about everything, and watching the news just makes you worry about things that are completely out of your control. And she said now she really tries every day when she wakes up to live her life fearlessly. And the third? Yeah, joy and laughter. And we were just talking about that being like spiritual elevation. She said, we were like that when we were kids, and we kind of grow out of it, but to live your life just with as much joy and like Mary and goofy laughter and happiness as possible. And we've been talking about this one for 2 years. Fearlessness, authenticity, yes. She said, life is the greatest gift. So I added to that precious. Life is precious. So when you almost lose it, or loving someone you almost lose, or lose someone, you realize how precious every moment we have, every day we have is. And lastly is what Jackie said. Be yourself. Be authentic. And as Henry Miller would say, because everyone else is taken. So as always, as a community out there in our community here, just beautiful teachings for us to remember that the most important things are invisible. So we're working in the invisible here, and allowing this practice to really be a game changer on how we're seeing our life and where we're putting our attention. Namaste.